December 1st will mark the day that the global server of Vanguard Zero is going to enter the G era, which is basically the second generation of Vanguard. This took place in the TCG between the year 2014 and 2018, and as some of you, the viewers of the channel, know, this is actually my favorite era of the game ever, so much so that I even made a video saying goodbye to it all the way back when it first ended, and it was kind of a tearjerker. And then when the series after that ended, which was the V series, that was more of like a I'm glad we're finally done with this. And just like we did with Legion way back when that first released in Global, I am now going to make a video talking about my tips for the G era in Global Vanguard Zero. Now, we do not know the exact changes or what kind of things they might do differently in the global version compared to the Japanese version. So if there are any differences once December 1st comes, you'll have to factor those in. Everything here that I tell you is based on the Japanese version of the app. And if there are big changes, I'll try to make a pinned comment here below so you guys can actually go through them. First things first, I think let's just get the obvious out the way. What is striding? Stride is a type of card that exists in the G zone, which is an extra deck that is not located within your 50 card main deck, that in order to access on either your third turn or higher if you're going second, or your fourth turn or higher if you're going first, you're able to discard cards from your hand equaling to grade 3 or higher. So whether that's 1 grade 3 or 2 grade 2s or a grade 2 and a grade 1 or 3 grade 1s, etc. in order to choose a card that is face down in your G zone and stride it face up on your Vanguard circle, and then this stride inherits the name and power of your original grade 3 Vanguard, but you can't use the skills of your grade 3 Vanguard, and instead you use the skills of the stride. At the end of the turn, the stride goes back to the G zone face up, which activates the generation break count as well. Generation break is active when one or more strides are face up between your Vanguard circle and the G zone. So when you stride for the first time, you're at GB1, that goes back to the G zone, you're still at GB1. Next turn you stride again, now you're at GB2. Now the first tip that I'll give you is not the most fun one, but when the G series first released in the JP server of Vanguard Zero, I made a video going over all the different changes that happened to the game. It's quite extensive, and I recommend that you watch it because that will give you probably the first answers to most of your questions that you have. So make sure you check that one out first, because that will probably give you a nice and solid rundown of things going forward. The second tip, which I think is probably the one that most of you are well aware of, is that the G packs don't have a sort of like overall pack just like they did before G, where you got the pack tickets that you could use on every single set, but instead in G it's going to be more like the game Shadowverse, where you get pack tickets for every single different set, and these are distributed throughout the month of that set's release, and then after that the new set comes out, that set's tickets are still released as well alongside the most current set too. And where I'm going with this is that the only way to save up for packs, because you can't save your packs for the next set anymore, is gems. So your gems are the most precious resource, if they weren't already, for your packs in G, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have been aware of this for some time, but if it's not too late, make sure you're saving your gems for G. One of the biggest changes in the G era for Vanguard Zero is the complete change to the game economy, which has unfortunately been mostly a bad thing. They introduced a new rarity, which is GRs. Now, even if you play the TCG during the G era, this will be different for you, because GRs in the TCG were usually like 1 per set or 2 per set, eventually 3 per set, but then became easier to pull. And these were essentially cards that you could only get in that rarity, but they weren't necessarily expensive. When you think of things like Chronos Command or Primavera at the start, those weren't exactly expensive because you didn't need to run them in many copies, but then cards like Next Stage, which were 4 ofs, became pretty expensive and usually went for like 70 bucks a piece, by the way. In the G era and Zero instead, they have taken some cards that were rares, that were trial deck cards, some cards that you want to run as 4 ofs because they Persona Blast in the G zone. Switching over to the game screen here, let me show you an example, right? So you'll see that here we have what the boxes look like, which of course is a huge change as well, is that now there aren't any more random packs. Every box is 150 packs, and they have certain ratios of every single card that appears in a box, and you pull until you pull that ratio of cards, or if you want to reset the box, you can obviously reset it to reset the box to its original ratios. And you'll notice that, for example, a card like Root Flare Dragon, which was a triple rare in the TCG, has been turned into a GR that needs to flip a copy of itself in the G zone in order to use its effect to retire your opponent's column. Cards such as Saint Blow, which were again triple rares in the TCG, have been turned into GRs. None of these cards actually that you see here were GRs in the TCG. The GR from the TCG was Chronos Command, which is a triple rare here. And you'll notice that some strides, well, the only stride so far that's available as double rare is Mystery Flare Dragon. And so rarities, as always in Zero, completely change depending on how good a card is, not what the rarity was in the TCG. And because of this introduction of GRs, not only are they hard to pull, but also they are hard to craft. They require a total of 5 5,000 GR materials, and this is something that the Japanese community has been pleading to Game Studio to change to make them more affordable, because these GRs are very important, they are essential, and the only way to get them is by getting dupes of cards while pulling for gacha, deconstructing your SPs, and you know, if you have too many of a card, of course, dupes, getting ranked reward promos of cards you already have so you can get rid of the original rarities and get your GR materials like that, exchanging the common crafting essence that you have, which I can show you right here, looks like this. So essentially 50,000 of this common crafting essence can be exchanged for 100 GR materials, and a GR costs 5,000 of these. One of the main sort of like analysts when it comes to data in Zero, Fluffy, has actually made a very nice guide that I'll attach in the description that you can check out, but here's a table that he made on basically the way to obtain GR materials and how they are generally gathered. So let's talk a little bit about how you'll be getting these GR materials. First things first, I would say that you want to set how far you want to go in ranked each season, because the dupe triple rares that you get, so far all the rank rewards in G have been triple rares, will be able to be converted into GR materials, which will give you more, and you also get a lot of gems from doing ranked, which again will let you open more packs. The most important thing though is pre-crafting. If you watched my earlier video on all the changes, you'll know that they changed character fights completely. Some of the difficulties give you confirmed rates of drops, and it's generally become so much easier to craft cards. You get way more triple rare material, way more double rare materials, and overall it's easy to just craft cards that are not GRs. So you always have an abundance of triple rares and below, but the GRs are harder to come by. So what people do when a new set comes out is, instead of jumping on a set and opening packs, what they do is they go to the crafting screen and craft as many cards in a set as possible. Whether it's a clan you like or dislike, just use your crafting materials. Number one baseline is craft every single common, because those you don't even need clan materials for. Then you want to also prioritize crafting as many triple rares as possible, then going down to double rares, and of course rares. Reason for this is that if you can pre-craft as much of a set as possible, you will then, when you go to pull packs from that set, if you already have a playset of a triple rare, for example, when you pull it, you immediately get the GR materials, which will bring you closer to crafting your GRs. Therefore, you don't need to go through 4 boxes pulling for one of each GR that you need. Now, you might be thinking, oh, but I can just like craft SPs and kill them and then be able to get GR materials like that. That is actually not recommended, because it's much better to save your materials to pre-craft many sets rather than burning all of your currency on making SPs and getting rid of them. You want to be thinking in the long term and not in the short term in terms of how you can exchange for these GR materials. And that's kind of like the focus of GR materials. In set 1, it's going to feel like it's impossible to get any, but as the months go by, it becomes easier and easier. In clan events, if you're not particularly interested in a clan, you can also pre-craft the stuff there in exchange for them to get GR materials, exchange for the SPs even, and then get rid of those SPs from the clan event in order to get more GR materials. In a later update, from the character fights, you also get these keys that you use to unlock the stories of those characters, but when you have already finished the stories of that character, you just have an abundance of keys. Luckily, you can exchange those keys for the common crafting essence or for the specific clan materials, which will then allow you to pre-craft or to exchange for GR materials as well. Generally speaking, also don't force yourself to think that you have to finish a deck in one day or like on release. You get packs for the current set of the month throughout the entire month, and you get a lot of them too, because your VP rewards will give you them, events will give you them, specific login bonuses for whatever is going on in game will also give you them. So you gather a lot of packs throughout the month by just playing, and thus you can slowly build towards that deck. And don't forget that older packs can still be picked up even after a new set comes out, so you can even take months to finish a deck if you really need to. Another big change that we talked about that we didn't know the answer to back then was the change to the daily system and the kind of like grade system, so your player level in the game. So they introduced the G grade, which works completely differently. It changed the way the dailies work entirely around it, and the G grade basically seems to be infinite. There doesn't seem to be any limit to G grade. There's people super high. Some of the whales have gone like to, you know, way above and beyond, and the average player right now in JP is on like grade 30. So allow me to show you here, for example, the G grade you see in the top left corner, and basically you have 3 dailies per day that each give a certain amount of these like fighters points and this red like stride metal thingy. And so your dailies every day will be to do 3 of these dailies to get the 30 gems that you get from the daily, on top of whatever else is going on in the event. As you can see here, we have a dice event right now, so don't mind that. On top of that, you can also get more quests. You can get 3 more quests by using 30 stamina, which you might be overflowing of. And doing these quests will give you more of the fighters points as well as more more of that, you know, this red fighter's medal. Now, the fighter's points are used to fill up this gauge, which usually will fill up over like 3 days or so on average once you get to the higher G grades. And when you G grade up, your stamina resets, you get some gems on top of that as well. And these dailies can range like from so many things. They can ask you for your My Room medals, they can ask you to do a certain amount of character fights with a certain character, play ranked with certain decks, you know, just like talk to a character, like just various things. It's really similar to Shadowverse. And the nice thing about this daily system is that, especially at the start, do not rush it, because you want to keep as many grade ups for the first clan event as possible, and you can actually get that one for practically free if they don't make any changes. And now, what are these red fighters medals for? So what these can be exchanged for is a variety of things. First things first, you can exchange them for packs. So as you can see here, the most recent pack as of recording this is, you know, Soaring Ascent of Gale and Blossom, and you can exchange for a total of 5 of the packs per month. So you can see here that I've exchanged for 3 of the Soaring Ascent of Gale and Blossom ones, and I can still exchange for ones of the first G set, which is, you know, Generation Stride. On top of that, you can also exchange. So these come for 2,000 of these medals each, and you can see I can already pick up 6 packs. So I'm saving 10k to make sure that when the new set rolls over, I can pick up 5 packs immediately on the month. And then here you can also pick up things like the old gacha tickets for 1,000 each, and they have a limit of 10 per month, or the skip tickets for 100 medals each, which you use for every single event type that there is, and these will be very important, so make sure you save these, especially for the tower events. On top of that, also the starting vanguards from the various clan events can also be picked up here for, you know, by trading here if you didn't manage to pick them up from those clan events, so that is also very nice. G-skin medals are something I want to touch on as well, because these are basically the character skins of the G era characters, and you get 1 G-skin medal for free, and that's it. The rest so far we've had to pay for, and I'm hoping that, you know, Global is a bit more generous with this, because these are necessary. Some of these skins are very important because they give you boosts during the clan events. Now, I've made videos talking about every single clan event so far and going over which skins are boosted there, and some of these pop up more than others. And so when these clan events are, if there's any clan you're interested in, watch the videos of the JP clan event, look at which skins are used for boosts, because they will give you a 1.5 times boost in the points you earn, and this will make the difference in how fast, or if at all, you'll be able to finish the clan event without spending any of your gems. So make sure you use that free G-skin token very carefully, because all you need is virtually 1 in order to finish the clan event. We are all hoping the Game Studio gives out more for free in the future, but that is yet to be seen. I'd also like to touch up on dailies once more again, because the dailies also have different values. Some dailies will give you 50 of the points and the medals, some will give 100 and some 150, and this usually ranges in their difficulty. You know, the 50 ones are like someone's room or like someone's deck list, whereas the 150 ones will be like do 5 character fights or win twice with a certain clan. You can also reset the dailies for free 3 times per day without using up your stamina, and after that it costs 5 stamina per reset if you don't like a certain daily and you want to reset for one of greater value. Clan events are also still your best friend, because you should be happy if your clan becomes a clan event, because even, for example, in the later clan events where Game Studio became a little bit more stingy, in order to finish the Narukami clan event using just 1 boosted skin, if you only have 1, it takes between 1,400 and 2,000 gems in order to get 4 copies of the GR, which is much better than having to spend up to 60,000 gems if you're super unlucky to get 4 copies of a GR from a booster set. So I think 2,000 versus, you know, between 30,000 and 60,000, there's a clear difference here. In the clan events, you also want to do the daily quests that give you that event's medals that you can exchange for the cards. Even if you don't have the boosted skin, just do the daily amount that it asks you to do, and then save the rest of your character fight tickets for the boosted days that you have the skin for. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is box resetting tips. This is the most important thing in G era right now, in my opinion, and if you play Duel Links, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, you will know about this pretty well as well. So let's go back in game here and take a look at the, you know, box purchase menu. So we have the first set here, which will release in December. You guys will have this very soon, and you have the second set, and we're going to get the third set in just a few days in JP as well. So let's take a look at the first set, right? Each set usually comes, well, so far, always comes with the 3 clans. Unless you are pay to win, or, you know, you spend money on the game, if you're free to play, I recommend carefully choosing which clans you play, just like you always have. But it is especially important in G era because you will dedicate all your time and effort into this set or sets once they get multiple forms of support. So for example, if you are really into Grand Blue, you're going to be waiting for Night Rose to release, and then once she does, you're going to go ham. If you really love Chronojet and you've been waiting to play Gear Chronicle ever since Zero released, set 1 is where you go focus in on and, you know, don't touch the other sets until Gear Chronicle gets support again. Or if there's your secondary clan, let's say Shadow Paladin, which is coming out in set 3, then you focus on set 1, wait for set 3, pull on set 3, wait for either Shadows or Gear Chronicle to get support in the future, which might even be set 4. So for example, what do I mean by focusing? So each box comes with 150 packs, and in the 150 packs, you have 1 of each GR, 2 of each triple rares, 3 of each double rares, and then like 6 to 7 of each rare, I think, if I remember correctly, and a lot of commons, so don't worry too much about that. Each pack comes with 4 commons and 2 cards that are rare or above, so there's no more chances of like pulling 4 triple rares in one pack, unfortunately. But because there's so many triple rares in a box of 150 packs, the actual pull rate of triple rares is pretty damn high. So let's say we're going into Generation Stride and we want to play Gear Chronicle. What should we be doing, right? When do we reset the box in order to maximize our chances of finishing the deck without having to overcommit on our packs and our gems? Well, you're gonna have to look at the GRs. GRs are the most important point that you will be resetting the boxes for. The first GR for Gear Chronicle that you want to have at least 2 copies of, and optimally 2 copies of, because while it is good to have 4 at the start, this will be cut down to 2 in the future. So you're gonna be opening packs until you get your first Ragnarok Dragon. The moment you get it, you might want to reset. The only exception is if you need a Fate Rider Dragon. Fate Rider Dragon is also a nice GR to have as a 1 or 2 copies, but you can definitely live with 1 as well. So essentially, if you're a Gear Chronicle player, you want to most likely start and pull until you pull a Ragnarok, reset the box, and then open the second box until you get your second one, and then maybe try to go until you get the Fate Rider, and you're off to a pretty good start. Because throughout this process, you have had the chance to actually pull 2 copies of the triple rares from from the 1 box each. So by this point, you might have already pulled 4 of the triple rares and more than 4 copies of all the double rares as well as below. In the long term, not that many GRs are going to be like kept as 4-ofs. In the early game, especially if you're a very competitive player, you will want to have the options, right? Because if you're playing in, you know, the Morikawa tournaments, you're playing for cash prizes, you obviously want to have the best deck possible to answer all the situations. The whole point of a G zone is that it's a toolbox accessible to you at every stage of the game once you are able to stride, and certain strides answer certain situations better than others. If you are playing like 2 or like 3 clans or above from a set, then obviously you want to be pulling until you get the GRs you want in the certain ratios that you want. And luckily for you guys, going forward in all of the set breakdowns that I'll be doing for the G series, I will always say the recommended GR amount that you need to have of every GR. So how many copies you need in the long term, so you guys don't overextend, don't overspend, and don't overcommit to a set. Because while yes, it is very nice to have a Root Flare as a 4 of right now, this is going to be the case for the time being, but in the future you're going to be cutting it down to 2 because it's going to be better strides releasing. Gabblade is also a nice stride to have as like a 3 of right now, but in the future it's going to go down to like a 1 of. So was it really worth going through 3 boxes when you could have saved that for a future set? Ask that yourself. Another important point is that when you pull an SP copy of a card, it replaces, you know, the version of it in this count too. So let's say if you can only pull 1 GR Root Flare per box, let's say, if you pull the SP, that's the 1 Root Flare of that box gone. The nice thing is though, if you don't play a Kagero, let's say, you can get rid of it. You can decraft the SP and get yourself 1,000 GR materials. Box resetting is going to be the most important part of the game when you're pulling for new packs and you're pulling for new cards. And I really recommend that you guys look through all of the data that I'm giving you guys on this channel of what's going on in JP, what are the upcoming sets, what clans are in them. Come into people's streams. It's fine to ask like, oh, when does Grand Blue get supported? When does Pale Moon get supported? When does Dimension Police get supported? To know when to expect for the sets to come in, so you know how long you're saving your gems for. And also because you get so many of the free packs, you know, for every set, you can always just open them just to get GR materials, because it's still good to pre-craft the sets, especially for the commons, so you can still farm your GR materials so you won't be needing to open as many boxes. Because every time you're able to craft a GR, if you only play 1 clan, that's 1 less box you have to open, which can be a huge investment. If you're unlucky, it might take you all 150 packs to find the GR that you're looking for. Box resetting, again, I'll say this many times, is the most important part of opening packs in G. And now, this is going to be a point that I think will make quite a few people happy, because so far, you know, we've been talking about like, oh man, GRs are so expensive, you know, it's so hard to build these decks and things like that. You'll be pleased to hear that a lot of Legion decks with heal guards and the generic strides that every player gets for free will take you very, very far. You can easily play this game and climb ranked and get to very high ranks without even using any of the decks that are supported in G yet, and just play with stuff that's out in Legion and get pretty far. I personally switch into Link Joker every now and again because it hasn't had its support yet, well, not until set 3, just because it's like, well, it's still a strong deck. Play Bluish Flames or Liberators or Brawlers or Perditions. A lot of these decks that you build at the end of Legion are still really, really strong, and just putting in the heal guardians that are added into the game as well as the generic Elemental strides will let you still play around with different playstyles and be able to stride and draw cards and find the pieces you need to win the game. And sure, there's going to be some cards in G that will support those decks, and things like Perditions of course have strides in set 1 too, and if you are a big card hero fan, you're going to be pulling for that set anyway. And another thing I have to mention is get ready for nerfs, because while I'm assuming when G launches in Zero you're going to get all the big buffs that we got during our downtime month, the most dominant decks at the start of G got some big nerfs. The Cross was one of them, got nerfed pretty hard, but it's still one of the best decks even now, but it takes much more skill to play, and it's on an equal power level with everything else. Brawlers get nerfed, but are still perfectly viable. Bermudas will also get nerfed too, but remain strong. So get ready for nerfs, and you know, if you're planning to one-trick the Cross, get ready to adapt. On top of that, if you need help with knowing when to stop pulling on a box and when to reset it, Fluffy actually made a calculator for like the worth of keeping to pull, or like what you need in the box. So make sure you check that out in the description, because that calculator, he even has a guide on how to use it, will help you to know if it's worth to continue pulling or not. I also want to briefly talk about some gameplay tips, as I did during the Legion video, which was the kind of main focus back then because it wasn't a huge system change. But essentially for gameplay tips is, especially going first, don't overcommit early, because you only get to stride on turn 4 and it's good to play passive. Obviously some decks can play super aggressively because they make it back up their resources later, or they just benefit from aggressive playstyle, but generally speaking it's fine to play more passively, not overcommit things to board, ride, swing, pass, you know, those are definitely viable gameplay choices. On top of that, don't get over tempted by the grade 0 criticals. You should be playing the grade 0 heals. The grade 0 heal guardians are literally 4 extra cards you can guard with in your deck. Everyone should be playing those. But the critical triggers are tempting, but they can shut off your on hits. They only draw you cards when you check them in defense, and generally speaking, just playing more draw triggers, as in more grade 3s, will not only give you more stride fodders in a deck, but also drawing you more cards, which have always been very good. Your grade 1 space will be quite limited because you will have 4 PGs and 4 stride fodders and then 5 other slots to do stuff with, and the stride fodders are very important because they also search your grade 3s, which you can even play as a one of in like Legion decks to make sure you're not grade stuck sometimes. So make sure to use that grade 1 space carefully, because you basically only have 5 slots to work with in terms of flexibility. Also make sure to respect the GB count of your strides at all times. Be careful not to go into a GB2 stride when it's better to go into it later game, even if its first sight of the effect might be tempting. That works even when you're on GB1. I'm thinking of stuff like Ragnarok, I guess. I think I might even want to focus on a different video and make like a gameplay tips video in the future, because this video has been very much focused on just like the kind of card economy and game changes. So let me know if you guys want a more gameplay focused tips video, because I think there's a lot of smaller things on top of that outside of like the obvious things, you know, such as just not overcommitting on striding. You know, don't discard 3 PGs to stride. Sometimes it's good to just like sit on your grade 3 sometimes and not forget it has a GB2 effect, as well as the playing passively tip. To finish off the video, I want to go through the Fluffy guide that he wrote on the general economy of Vanguard Zero and read out some of the do's and don'ts that he's gone through, because there are some things I haven't mentioned yet and I think it's really important to mention them. One of the don'ts, he says, is of course, do not farm easy on the character fights, because this one is the least worth out of them all. Do not shotgun packs, so don't like go straight into pack opening. Always pre-craft before you start opening a set. Do not spread too thin on clans either. You want to dedicate to the ones you love, especially if you are free to play. Do not use gems to open packs just to get triple rares. It is easier to just do the character fights and craft the triples. Opening boxes, the whole point to open boxes is pulling the GRs. Do not spend your GR materials on clan materials. That just don't do that. He also goes over some pros and cons of G, and I really do agree with these. because G, as I said before, is my favorite like era of the game ever, and I was very excited for it, and a lot of the like negative changes definitely did put a kind of sour taste in a lot of people's mouth. And we really hope that Game Studio listens to the player base, because the Japanese player base has been really loud about their just discontent with the game right now, and usually these companies tend to listen to the loud Japanese player bases, as if the global player base wasn't already loud enough. So he writes that the pros and cons about G. So the pros are that triple rares and lower are trivial / easier to craft now, which is definitely true, because the card economy, the cost economy in the whole game has changed so much because of GRs. He says that key farming, the character keys that you get from the character fights, are also a pro because they give you more crafting materials, and clan events are basically your best friend and are very easy to build or require a small gem investment, and generally you should be happy if your favorite clan is a clan event. Cons, of course, I think the biggest one is that paid skins are used for clan event boosts, and you basically have to shell out like 10 bucks or so in order to like get your clan event deck going sometimes. And having that one boosted skin makes a huge difference in whether you can finish a deck or not, which is honestly pretty sad that they don't just put Chrono, which is a free character, in every single clan event. And of course, main set GRs are dummy expensive, and everyone hopes that crafting them becomes a bit cheaper. And for me, the biggest pro that I think we're talking so much about cost efficiency and things like that is simply gameplay. Gameplay has never felt so good. It really feels so good to play Zero right now. The meta feels very healthy after the nerfs. The power level is really good. Every decision you make in a game is so vital. And for me, that is like pleasure. I really enjoy just that every single decision I make is important. I'm not just like relying on sacking triggers all the time or other gameplay elements that I didn't like as much in the past. So for me, the gameplay is the biggest like boost and the best thing about the entire G series. And I feel like with how much we've been talking about, like, you know, adapting to the negative things in the G series, we kind of forget the best thing about it, which is the gameplay. Huge thank you to Fluffy for all of the help that he gave throughout this guide. Shoutouts to Aerotanks as well for helping me kind of like round out the points that I had as well. Shoutouts to my Twitch community as well, because I got to discuss this entire video with them on stream, and I'm very thankful to everyone that contributed to this video. Again, check out the link in the description to the guide for the card economy in Zero. It's a huge PDF, as well as a bunch of guides attached at the end that you can use for just making your life better and easier when it comes to just sustaining yourself as a free-to-play in Vanguard Zero. And for my fellow payer friends that like to support the Vanguard series and just Bushiroad as a company, don't overspend. Anyway guys, this has been a very long video talking about all the tips for Vanguard G. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. If there are big changes made in the future that retcon some of the things that I've said, I will put a pinned comment at the top and you guys will be able to read that. I'll put stuff in the description, so I'll be updating the comments and the description actively, I hope, as long as, you know, Game Studio makes changes, which we are all definitely hoping for. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Please do give it a like if you liked the video, and do subscribe if you haven't already. Check out the socials and everything else in the description, but otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.